really focused on they're really focused on manual data import and 5-minute data. So the first one here is when bulk importing 5-minute or hourly data, the adjustment factor is now applied if set in the import configuration. So we have, see if I can minimize this. Okay. Um, we have, when you're doing your polling configuration under advanced options, an adjustment factor. And that had been in there for a while, and that was being used for um, polling, automated polling, could apply an adjustment factor to data that's coming in. So let's say when the data is coming in off your logger, you know that you need to multiply those values by 1,000 before they're being stored, so you can use those. Those adjustment factors are now available um, for manual data import as well. Okay, and then we have a few
And
improvements
that,
related.
let me just say that that's really useful for PPB to PPM in ozone, right? Thank
Right.
you.
Now, in some cases, there are already AQS units that you could just apply the right unit in your polling configuration, but in some cases, the unit's not there, so you do need to use that manual adjustment factor. Okay, the next is we have a few improvements related to 5-minute manual data import. Um, if you're importing 5-minute data, and you want QREST to not only import your 5-minute data, but calculate the hourly averages off that data as well, your import configuration needs to specify what is the averaging logic for each of the parameters. So if it's wind speed, you'd want the hourly to just be a straight arithmetic average. If it's like wind direction, you want it to be angular average. For rainfall, you'd want it to be a sum. So in the past, we had, you could call it a bug, but people could create their polling configurations for 5-minute data and have those averages missing. So then the hourly data wouldn't get calculated. So that's now required. Next is related to manual import of 5-minute data also. If you go to manual import and then you go to your import history, and I'm going to select ITEP here, and we can view a history of all of the data that we've imported for this organization over time. And for each import file we imported, we see how many records there were, what type of data it was, the status. And we have the ability to delete those records too. So maybe you made a mistake, you imported the data, you want to kind of back it all out. Um, in the past, if it was 5-minute data and you click to delete it, it would only delete the 5-minute data. It wouldn't delete the associated hourly data that QREST just calculated for you. But now it does both. So if you go to delete that 5-minute data, all 5-minute and hourly related to that import will be removed.
Can I just point something out, Doug? Can you go back to that screen
Yeah.
for a second? Just because it's super important for those of us who have spent years of our lives trying to figure out, did I already import that data? Or is it overlapping? The great thing is QREST keeps track of that, and you can click on the raw data that if you want to see what it was that you tried to import, and then you can click on imported, which shows you what actually QREST imported. So it logs it all there for you. So you don't have to have a gigantic paper and pen notebook where you log it all. Although I still recommend paper and pen. Thank you, Doug. But I need more help. So QREST provides so much help in terms of data management.
Yeah, I like that raw also, just because then you
Mhm.
never have to worry about storing your text files that you just imported, because Crest will store a copy of that original CSV file or tab file. They're just, and this is very minutia type stuff, but various timeout settings have been changed to prevent system timeout on importing large 5-minute data files. Um, Importing hourly data is pretty fast. Importing 5-minute data can be really slow because QREST is not just importing the data, but typically calculating the hourly averages as well. And that includes all of the validation that goes along with that, validating it with the level 0 validation, checking the values that you've imported against AQS null codes and qual codes, if any match, and it puts them in there. Um, so yeah, the 5-minute can be slow, and QREST has logic such that if the import file is small enough, it just does it right on the fly. If it detects that it's too large, it sends it to our background task to run. So that'll just keep running in the background that you can kind of refresh the screen and see the status update. So we've made some tweaks there to prevent system timeouts. Another thing, this just kind of avoid confusion is when you're doing your column mapping in polling configuration and you're saying, let's say you've got an import file and you want to say, okay, column 4 is going to be PM and column 5 is ozone. And when you're configuring each column, I'll show it here. Okay. So here I've got a polling configuration and it's 5-minute data, and I've got my column mapping. So when I go to adjust or add a new column mapping, the summary type is
Good.
necessary, as you see
Okay.
here. But if I'm doing polling configuration for hourly data, and all that's coming off of a logger is hourly data, when I go to edit the polling configuration for this parameter, relative humidity, there's no column for averaging. So that used to be there, and it was probably confusing for people to see. I'm importing hourly data. Why do I even need to specify calculation logic for this column? Because QREST wouldn't be calculating anything for it anyway. So just a little cleanup on the screen there. And we will require now that you have to have that calculation logic for 5-minute data so that you don't avoid the situation later where you think you set everything up and now QREST isn't calculating hourly data for you and you're not sure why. So we kind of catch that up front when you're doing your configuration. And finally, just related to the adjustment factor, if I do have in my polling configuration, if I put in an adjustment factor, let me go to this one. If I do put in an adjustment factor and save that, that will be available for you on the screen there. So you can go and change that later. And just a small bug fix. In the past, if no summary type was specified and you tried to save that column mapping, it just wasn't saving. That bug is now fixed. So for whatever reason, that was blank to begin with, and then you wanted to add it in, it just wouldn't let you. So that bug's fixed. So yep, those are the changes that we've got since our last meeting a couple months ago. Any questions about that?
Yeah, I want you to talk about the gap filling. I realize it was 727, but I'm still it's maybe I should just crow about it. It's so useful, especially for older loggers that have gaps, or for whatever reason there's a power outage and there's a gap in your data. Doug has programmed QREST to look back 99 hours and see if the data logger on site has records that didn't make it into QREST. So automatically gaps are filled if you have these situations, which happens quite a bit. And you might be worried about your data if you go in. Always feel free to call or text us. But QREST does have this new catch-up feature so that it tries to fill in those gaps. So thank you. I said it, Doug, but
Yeah.
it's really great because gaps happen all the time.
Yeah. And Crest was really having issues where um in the when there's a gap, it could be for any number of reasons. It could be your logger is down, the connectivity to the logger is down, Crest is having some issues, or you might have something else connected to your logger so that Crest is unable to connect. There's a whole variety of reasons. Maybe a connection even was made, but it's just so slow, it's timing out. We see that happen. And in the past, Crest could recover from those situations because we would try to still recover the last hour's worth of data. So as long as this hiccup was no longer than an hour, it'd be fine. But now, we go back 99 uh, records, and what we do is grab the 99 records at a time. So you could be down for a month, and what Crest will do is see, oh, okay, we haven't collected from this logger for a month. Okay, we're going to start from 1 month ago and go forward from there, 99 records at a time, grab them, process them, and then do it again and again. So we kind of do it in 99 record chunks, but we work our way back from the oldest missing record to the present. And eventually Crest catches up. Eventually we get all the data back. So it's a lot more stable in terms of, gaps in data.
Does anybody have any questions about that? Have you guys seen that happening with your data?
Melinda and Doug, I have a question.
Yay.
It's not about the gap fill, which is cool.
Thank you.
um, yeah, that is definitely helpful. It's about the adjustment factor. Sorry, I was trying to follow along. Doug, did you say that there was a point previously in the past that it wasn't working, but now it is?
Yes, in the past, it had been working for automated polling only, but not for manual import.
Ah, got it. Okay.
Because
That
otherwise
makes
you'd have to multiply by 1,000 on the data you sent to
Okay.
AQS.
No, I'm not going crazy. I wasn't imagining. That's always good,
It
It's
is
a good day when
really
you
good.
when you weren't going crazy.
Well, that's the problem with data and so much data. It does drive you crazy because it's so hard to keep track of. And that's, even for me, helping people with their data, if we have QREST, we could both be looking at the same thing at the same time. We could send the data to AQS and see what happens together, and it logs it all. So it's a real big help to me individually, just doing my job of helping people get their data to AQS. Anybody else? Oh, hello. I see somebody else has a comment. Nope. Okay. So,
Question.
Chris,
Yeah,
oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
all right. So if you grab duplicate data, will that automatically detect that and not upload that, or?
Yep.
Yes.
Both,
Yeah.
yeah, both QREST will do that and AQS will do that too. AQS won't take, unless you send your data to AQS with a delete instead of an I for insert, it can delete, or you can update with a U. And QREST could send that. Like if you realize you sent the wrong data to AQS, you can send update or delete sends from QREST to AQS. But yeah, if you're manually importing data, and because it would happen all the time, right? You've got a gap of data, it's old, so QREST can't see it, and you've got the data for the whole day. Well, which part of that do you need to import to avoid multiple identical rows? Yeah, that's the worst thing of a database ever, is if you could do that, and QREST won't let you do that.
Uh, And just one thing I wanted to kind of clarify on that for in terms of duplicates, how Crest handles duplicates for automated polling versus manual import is different. For automated polling, if we poll and we happen to pull the same record again, we will update that record, which depending on the type of logger you have, that situation does happen sometimes. So we will overwrite. But typically that data is within the last hour anyway. It's new data that's being overwritten. That was just written, 15 minutes ago anyway. For manual import, when you're importing the data, QREST will detect duplicates, whether that duplicate is in your import file itself or compared with the data that's already in QREST, and will display those duplicates for you to act on.
Okay. Another item that I wanted to review in more detail, but I don't really have the details yet, because we're hoping to work with a tribe on an exchange network grant. Chris, do you want to say something about that in terms of, how we would very, very, very slowly, perhaps, first working with another tribal agency, transition to tribal governance for QREST?
Sure. So the whole reason for wanting to work with the tribe and eventually maybe handing off the administration and oversight of the tool to the tribes is that our ITEP funding is somewhat limited as well. And again, where it's definitely a good tool that is necessary and useful for the tribes, but in order to sustain the tool and then also to continue to build upon it and add different capabilities to it, it's going to take additional resources. And so for us, because of our limited funding and just a number of reasons, another big reason is that if the funding is the ITEP funding is utilized for this, there's a responsibility that we have to the agency in the sharing of the information that's with the tool as well. So again, it doesn't provide like a real true ownership of the information that's contained within the tool. So again, that as you all know, you work for the various tribes that you work for, your perspectives on that data sovereignty is maybe unique to your particular tribe, but we want to ensure that that all data that's contained within the tool is completely the authority of the tribes. And so that's a big part of this discussion as well. So what we're looking to do is to eventually partner up with tribes through their own funding mechanisms. So like the NEAN grant that Melinda is talking about, the way the NEAN funding works, the National Environmental Information Exchange Network, it basically is provides funding to tribes and states and locals. Unfortunately, because we're not one of those entities, we can't secure that funding. But if we are able to partner up with the tribe and the tribe would be the lead on this, we would be able to continue to provide that assistance in the administration and oversight of the tool, working with the tribe, and eventually hand off that authority or that capability and those responsibilities to the tribe. And again, our hopes and a big pie in the sky kind of perspective from us is that ultimately this tool would be completely owned by the tribes. It would be separate from funding, and the funding would be handled through some sort of subscription type service where the tribes again are maintaining this under their own guidance and their own governance. But again, that's the ultimate goal right now, because again of our ITEP limited funding. I think we can continue to sustain the tool, but again, any efforts to grow it and to add additional capabilities might be somewhat limited into the future. And so again, that's part of the effort that why we're reaching out to the tribes to begin to think about maybe submitting a NEEN grant for this. And again, we would definitely not leave the tribes hanging. And as Melinda's indicated, I think this is something that she has been working on from the very thoughts or planning portion of it, the conception of it, to actually implementation where and what we have right now. So I don't think she will ever let it go. I mean, it's she's got a lot of time and personal time and personal investment in this, and I'm glad. I mean, again, it's a really useful tool, but that's something that we do want to pose to you all. And if you're very interested in wanting to maybe be that lead on the grant and are considering on taking on the responsibility, please feel free to let us know, and we can certainly provide you our thoughts on the details of how it would work. But again, this is something that's we're just in the initial phases of proposing that to you all right now for consideration. And I guess it would be similar in how the previous TREX network operated, where there was one lead tribe that was Walker River Paiute that was overseeing the overall grant for the project, and the technical aspects of it were handled by Sutron. And again, that is similar to the model that we're suggesting, but again, it's as far as our support to this, it's not going to decrease. We're still going to be providing that significant support of this. But ultimately, again, for those sovereignty issues, we do want really the tribes to consider taking over governance of it, and so that all data, when it goes into this tool, it belongs entirely to the tribes. So that's the gist of what this is. The details still need to be discussed further, but again, right now it's still making that pitch to you all to consider it, and we can begin to move forward once we get some tribes that are interested, and we can discuss those details further. But that's the general idea for our thoughts on getting additional funding for this tool, and taking it to a place where the tribes ultimately own the tool entirely and are making the decisions about the administration and the operation of the tool. If there's any questions, please let me know. Or if Melinda or anybody else has any thoughts on this, please feel free to share that right now as well.
Okay.
All right, hearing none. Go ahead.
Thank you, Chris. So these, let me just go over my my notes. But these sessions are for you guys. So these are an opportunity for you to ask us for new features or questions. We plan to meet again on December 17th at 1300 Eastern. And what I had planned as a, oh, hello, Kurt. Yes, go ahead.
Is there a feature for a windrows for the wind direction?
No, but I can put in the chat a link if you wanted to. So there's two ways that I routinely create windrows as one of the first steps towards validating data. So one way is to go into Air Now, and you can generate a windrows in Air Now from your data, if your metadata is going to air now, or the closest site with metadata that you can find. There's also this site, which I will put in the chat. And so this is a website, datatools.tamcenter.com. And if you click down, if you just scroll down a little bit, there's a Windrows creation utility. So let me put this in the chat. And so if you've got your data that is not making, your metadata that is not making it to air now, then you need to generate a Windrows with your data at your site. This is a feature that allows you to, choose a file. So you go to your computer where you've got your Excel file probably, and then upload it. And then this creation utility will say, oh, okay, which column is your wind direction, which column is your wind speed, or your pollutant concentration if you're doing a pollutant rows. So you tell it the columns, you tell it which one is the magnitude, which one is the direction, and it makes a wind rows for you based upon however much data you have. So we do have this for you that my son made for us as a Mother's Day present. But like I said, if you're near other sites with metadata, it's fairly straightforward to make a Windrows. You go to AirNow Tech Navigator. You have to have an account with a username and password, but I've had the same one for 25 years, so you won't forget it. And then this tool, if it's depressed, it's active, and it allows you to create a Windrows near a site where they've got metadata. So for this particular time interval, and you can change the time interval, and then AirNow pulls metadata from nearby sites to generate that Windrows. But if you've got your data that you are confident about and you want to generate one just based on your particular site, then you could use this one.
Yeah, that's nice. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody else have any questions? We've got 10 minutes left or 9 minutes left, and I was just going to kind of go over the steps of the data flow in QREST and reviewing the data.
Hey, Melinda, I don't know if you've given Mike time to talk about the data loggers.
Oh gosh, I skipped over data loggers. Really? How do the data get into QREST? It's all about the data loggers. I'm just super excited to talk about graphs and charts. Go ahead, Mike. Let me pull up the page that shows, let's see if we have that, the different data loggers. Go ahead. Mike has worked super hard working individually with people on their data loggers, helping them get connected. And I've learned so much from working with Mike, and I'm really grateful that he's part of this project. Mike, did you want to talk about data loggers?
Yeah, thanks guys. Just really quick, so it's kind of running on time, but I don't know if I could share my screen really quick.
Yes, you can. I will make you co-host. You are automatically, permanently one of my co-hosts, Mike and Chris.
All right, sounds good. Okay, so I on the last tribal QREST meeting, we had kind of an overview of the different data loggers that are compatible with QREST or that QREST supports. In addition, I talked about the network configurations and just an example of a network setup that can be used to establish remote connections to allow that remote data acquisition to QREST, to allow QREST to pull from your monitors or your data logger. So I don't want to really go into that information right now, but I just wanted to just share some updates. I know there's tribes that are interested in pursuing direct connections to a Teledyne API T640 monitor using TCP/IP connections or allowing that connection to the internal data logger within the monitor to stream the data into QREST. if this makes sense. But basically, we did some research on our end to try to see if we could do that to allow the communication to occur between the T640 internal data logger and QREST. Unfortunately, we weren't really successful in that, and it's kind of ongoing. Teledyne API has what's called NumaView remote software that it communicates TCP/IP with. TCP/IP it makes a connection and communicates that way with that data logger support software. Again, that's called NumaView remote software. But unfortunately, right now we're not able to establish that similar connection to QREST. But just as of recently, Agilare, let's see, Teledyne, excuse me, Agilare, with their new firmware that came out for the 8872 loggers. Let me see, here it is. Just an announcement came out back in September. They are included the HTTP polling configuration for the site node logger for the 8872, whether you're running it on AirVision or the AV Trend. You would just update the firmware, and it's called the build 32, I guess, for them. And it allows you to establish a connection to your T640 if you wish to go that route. And then we can obviously connect to that Agilare PC data logger via QREST. Those are just some quick updates I wanted to share, guys. So thank you.
Thank you. So we plan to be connecting T640s, and we will get it done because, you know, the data has to come out one way or the other. So I'm sure that we'll be able to connect to those. And the instrument manufacturers have been really helpful with working with us so that we can understand what needs to happen so that the direct polling can go into QREST. Does anybody have any questions also about, you know, I want to reassure people about the longevity of QREST. I'm not going anywhere. So QREST is like a force multiplier. It enables more people to do more, including us at the TAM Center. It helps us. So I'm very, very committed to this as a tool for tribal data management. So we're not going anywhere, don't worry. But it would be awesome to collaborate with somebody on a NEAN grant. Well, we have 4 minutes left. Does anybody have any questions, or should I just go through real quick how you would validate PM10 data? Okay, nobody has any questions. All right, I'm going to show you guys really quick. So let's say you're looking at June data, and I have to log in again as I have 4 QAPs. Let's just say we're looking at June data. And the first thing we notice here in these blocks is that 720 hours were collected, 720 are suitable for AQS, which means that they have either a value or a null code and units. You can't send data to AQS without units. But none have had level 1 check and none have had level 2 check. So how do we do that? So the first step is you click here in review if we're going to review the PM10. And what that does automatically in the data review feature, it automatically defaults to hourly data. So just looking at this PM10 for June, you're like, whoa, look at this spike that came in. It has concentrations above 300 micrograms per cubic meter. Is that real? Or do I need to null code that out because of something that happened that is my fault? In other words, is not really representative of the air. Now, a lot of times, especially a lot of tribal agencies in the Southwest have very high PM concentrations, and you don't want to just routinely invalidate them. So the first thing to look at is this has a really nice gradual up and gradual down. Something happened in there, but let's zoom in on this data and look at it more carefully. So this shows that this kind of looks reasonable, right? Except that what's going on? This is getting to be kind of late at night. Just as an aside, this is Fort McDowell Yavapai Nation data. And all of a sudden in the past few weeks, they've had a guy come around with his, well, first there was ATVs. And now there's a guy roping horses at 11 o'clock at night, right near her site. So, you know, we've been communicating on whether like that 11 p.m. high PM values should be invalidated, but no, it's real. There's a guy doing roping horses and it's kicking up a lot of dust and everybody around there is breathing it. So you don't want to invalidate it, but you want to make sure it's explained. So the first thing I would do would be to compare different parameters together, an internal to your site data comparison, which you can do by clicking either here, this is advanced selection. And if you click there, you can select your primary pollutant and then what you want to compare it against. And for PM10, I just zoomed into this interval where she's got this huge spike above 300 saying like, well, what did the wind speed do? And it just depends on where you are probably, but peak wind gust seems like it would compare with high PM10. So I ran this chart with her data and you can clearly see there's a reason, a rationale for this PM10 being so high. It is because the wind speed went up, and that's not just by itself so supportive because you've got other times when the wind speed was high, but the PM wasn't that high. But check out this peak wind gust. So this value in red was over her limit of 25. These units are not showing peak, but 25 miles an hour. And that's in red. And then the purple is when it jumped down when the peak, all of a sudden the wind died down. So in terms of reviewing this data, I would perhaps qualify this data. But if this is happening all the time, this is really what people are breathing. This is important for it to go into AQS. So first you kind of do internal reviews and compare against other parameters at the same site, which seems like they should be related. And then what I would do is just take a screenshot of this and keep it in my validation log folder for June. And here I've got justification for this being pretty high. The other thing that you can do in QREST that's really useful is the 5-minute data. The 5-minute data can be accessed either by the raw data or the data review tab. So just showing you where that is. If you go here to advanced selection to any one of your parameters, you get the choice 1 hour or 5 minute. So I selected 5 minute for that time interval around the 20th of June, because a lot of times and I learned this from you guys, including Emma, a lot of times your hourly data might look weird. So if you have 5-minute data, it can often provide you extra assurance that the data are real. So just zooming in here, you could see the 5-minute data also have this representative high pattern. So again, that's another point of validation, another piece of evidence that you could say, oh, well, look, the internal to the site parameters agreed. I looked at the 5-minute data and it makes sense that there was a spike there. And what you're doing is basically going through these steps here. So the level 0 that Kurt asked about are the min, max, jump. And these steps are the same whether you're polling data automatically or whether you are importing data. And this is done by QREST. Then the level 1 site operator, maybe monthly, maybe more frequently or less frequently, they look mostly at these internal site or internal network parameters. They look at things like the instrument health. They look at things like, well, what about all the maintenance? All your valid data has to be basically bracketed by passing QC checks. And these are the kind of things, there's no need to like look at spikes if your QC checks didn't pass and that data's got to be invalidated. So this could be a way that you set up your data review structure. And this is the way we've set up QREST, but it's flexible so that you could do this whole thing if the whole program is just you every morning and you have to in the afternoon go do water sampling. This might just be you, or if you're doing regulatory monitoring, it may be you as the site operator, and then the level 2 reviewer might be your supervisors, or it could be another tribe, even across the country, but who understands what you're doing and is willing to review your data. And sometimes that happens quarterly, but basically what they do is they take a step back and say, okay, what about those broader criteria? Like, all right, we see very clearly that this spike of PM10 at Fort McDowell is probably real, just looking at the internal parameters. The next step is to kind of go big picture, look at, well, what was happening last year at this time? You know, are conditions the same? What is happening around nearby sites? And that's when what I would advise to do is, first of all, if you've got a spike and it's way over the standard, you want all the evidence you can get to support its validity. So first generate a windrows and say, okay, during this time period, and you could just put these times in here in Air Now, during this time period, where did the wind come from? And you say, okay, it was coming from the south, for example. Then what do? Well, you can actually access these other sites' data. It'd be nice if there was a better way to do it, but you could go into Air Now and download data. And that once you set up a query in Air Now, you can kind of go back to it. Like I set up a query for Fort McDowell. And what that does is it pulls together all the data from nearby sites near to her in the Phoenix area, and what was the PM concentrations that they were reporting. And then you could just take a screenshot or actually export a little picture from Air Now, and now you've got a lot of evidence that this particular spike is valid. We have example validation templates in this Windrows page. If you go back, if you just go datatools.tamcenter.com, we have a lot of example files for you here, including an example validation report where you basically we went through and we did all these steps. So first you look at the internal site comparison, and then you take a step back and you look at, okay, 5-minute data, does that make sense? And then you look at nearby sites, you find one that's monitoring for the same pollutant. What did they report to Air Now at that time? And there's another piece of evidence showing they had a spike the same time, or even super cool, like you could kind of see things crossing the area, right? So if it's coming from the southeast, Leroy Williams at Gila River will start seeing things ramp up before they get to Fort McDowell up here. So Air Now is really, really an excellent tool. We have all you guys set up, except for we're working with Confederated Tribes of Colville to get them added. But basically, your data are flowing into Air Now in a network that Air Now has called QREST, and it also is called TRX. But basically, the steps for reviewing and validating and reporting the data are all described in the QREST user's guide. That's just a quick overview, but there's workers happening next door creating a big ruckus. So thank you guys very much for participating. I love working with you and your data. It's such an honor to be able to see, you know, inside your world and your environment. We are so happy to be providing this useful tool for you guys. And if you guys know, you can email, text, text me anytime. Every morning we have a QREST admin SOP, and every morning we make sure QREST is up and the polling is still happening. But really, we're here for you guys, and let us know how things are going. Anytime if something's frustrating, and it's fun to work with you on your data in QREST. So thank you guys very much. I think that's it, unless somebody wants to stay on a little bit. We could talk individually about your data, or we could reschedule, whatever you guys want to do. Thank you. Chris, is that all? Doug, did you have anything to add?
Did not.
I don't have anything. Thank you for joining, everyone.
Yeah, thank you guys. I'm just going to stay on
Yeah.
in case anybody has any questions. So thank you guys, and I hope to talk to you soon.
Bye, all.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye. Ooh, what is this?
Melinda, I actually have a quick question if you have just a minute.
Yes, of course.
About
Yes,
something
yes,
that's going
yes.
on with us specifically.
Okay.
So you worked with us to get the hourly averages of the 5-minute data going. I just have one quick question about the level 0 automatic validations.
Okay.
When I go to do data review, it flags it with a caution symbol saying that the level 0 validation wasn't done for the hourly data we're working on. I'm not sure if maybe it's because it was calculated from 5-minute data and those flagging, extrema were set for 5-minute data and not hourly data, like why it's not doing that, but that's what I'm seeing.
Yes, well, we saw that too. So Doug,
Okay.
do you want to address that?
I do. I see it on your data right now. I'm looking at it, and I want to look back at the logic before I answer whether it's an issue that we've got in the import, or that you imported this data quite a while ago, right? You didn't do it today.
No, I think my most recent upload was the 25th of September.
Okay. And you imported, so let me just quickly.
Actually, no, sorry, it was October, but it included the end of September.
Gotcha. I see it here. So it was 5-minute data, and in that 5-minute data import, you said calculate hourly data. Right. And it did. And I have a feeling it's an issue in our import right now. So let me take a look at that, and I'll get back to you later today on that.
Okay, sounds good. There was one other weird little bug too, with, I believe it was 2-meter ambient temperature. It flagged a data point. What time was that? I'm looking at September 24th at 1300. It has the flag few, which I assume means there weren't enough 5-minute records to calculate the hourly average. However, when I go back and look at the 5-minute data records, I do have a 5-minute record or 5-minute interval for every, 5-minute timestamp in that hour. So I'm not sure if that's just a bug with that particular hour. But that was one other thing I noticed.
That is interesting. I'm curious. I'm at that screen. I want to just switch over to the 5-minute. Does it have those 5 minutes on there for that period?
Do you have Steve?
Hey, Delbert, how are you?
Hey, good. I was just wondering if this this thing of this uh I'm looking at it, and does it have the Steva numbers under?
The what numbers?
I know that when I do toolbox, it gives me a Steva number. STEVA, something like that.
Oh, standard deviation.
Yeah, yeah.
Yes, 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 it QREST does.
Okay.
That is in the monthly statistics report.
Mhm.
So just looking at Karen's data, if she looked at ozone, let's just look at 2 months of data. It generates a table including that column for sample standard deviation. I wish it's not showing here. Oh, because I'm in test and she doesn't have any data for this one. Okay, standard deviation is 0. Let me change this to 6. And let's just do 8. Who's got here? I know she's got some data in here. Okay, so yeah, so it's
Oh,
in
yeah,
monthly
yeah.
statistics,
Mhm.
and it and these charts, we just, if these charts are missing something or something doesn't make sense, let us know. Here is sample standard deviation for the month of her ozone concentrations.
Yeah. Yeah, cool. Yeah, because I always look at those numbers and say, and kind of average all my data and said, are these data STV has to do with something with my data
It,
deviation?
it's well, I think I, I I don't know. We could meet individually, but I think what you're talking about is Angelique still on? The sample standard deviation. I know she's bowed out. The sample standard deviation of that parameter during that time period reflects how much variation there is in that. So like, in the summertime, the variation is going to be way more
Mhm.
probably than in the wintertime, just because conditions vary so much for you in the mountains.
Mhm.
Um,
Mhm.
but yeah, I mean, if there's a graph that you want and this doesn't do it for you, um, we could work on that and setting something up that is useful for you, that then helps you do your reports.
Yeah, I might be spending some time with Karen and take my PC down there and we're gonna load Crest and see what happens.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah,
Let me know when you do that, and I could be there by Zoom to
okay.
join in the fun.
Sounds good. And I should have some data or something with me.
Yes, if you
Okay.
want to start importing it. And you could even, continue using whatever you've been, Tribal Data Toolbox or whatever you've been doing, and also QREST, and just like import your data into QREST and see like how they compare, make sure everything is how you think it should be.
Hmm.
And then use that node to AQS, get that data out of there.
Okay, okay. Yeah. It's good talking to you again.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. Thank you so much for logging in, Delbert. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Okay. Scott, are you there? Do you have questions? He's the last person. Nope.
No, no questions.
Okay. Okay. All right. Well, thank you so much, Doug and Mike and Chris. Chris had to go to another meeting, maybe. But thank you guys. Thank you so much. And Scott, if you want help with Crust, I'm here for you.
I know. Thank you so much.
All right, we'll see you
Okay.
guys.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.